Welcome back. Will the president's head of Homeland Security be forced to resign? Some calls are mounting for Secretary Janet Napolitano to step down over that controversial report on right-wing extremism. We've got the Congress meeting the charge in just a moment, but first to Catherine Herridge on the Secretary's big 9/11 gaffe that she's been trying to take back today. Catherine.
Yeah, that's right, Brian. In an interview with Canadian television, Secretary Napolitano said the Canadian and Mexican border should face the same level of scrutiny. Asked why, given that Canada doesn't have a drug war on its hands, the Secretary offered this controversial response.
To the extent that terrorists have come into our country, or suspected or known terrorists have entered our country across a border, it's been across the Canadian border.
Are you talking about the 9/11 perpetrators?
Not just those, but others as well.
Now, Canadian government officials are furious because it's well established that none of the hijackers came through Canada. Initially, Canadian media claimed Secretary Napolitano attempted to brush off the comment as a misunderstanding, but today she told Fox it was an error.
I admitted almost immediately that I'd made the mistake on the 9/11 terrorists. Of course, they did not cross the Canadian border, but the Millennium Bomber did. And it was only used to illustrate, look, the law requires that we now have certain mechanisms available at the Canadian border, and it's my charge to implement that law.
On the right-wing extremist memo, the Secretary does plan to meet with the American Legion tomorrow. That meeting comes as some members of Congress, as you mentioned, are asking for her to resign.
Catherine Herridge, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, now to those calls for the Secretary's resignation over the report on so-called right-wing extremists. Our next guest says it's enough for the Secretary to step down. He's leading the calls for her resignation. Joining us now, Republican Congressman John Carter of Texas. Congressman, thank you for joining us. You had the 9/11 gaffe that Catherine just talked about, and the report from the Department of Homeland Security naming veterans groups as possible extremist groups in that report. What do you make of this? You think she should step down?
The veterans thing is shameful, but the truth is, she names just about everybody you can think of as a possible terrorist. And she basically is labeling anyone who disagrees with the agenda of the administration should be watched by the law enforcement agencies of this country because there could be possible domestic terrorists. And she specifically says returning veterans from the Gulf Wars are very likely to be trained with weapons and therefore possible terrorists. She should be ashamed of herself for what she said about those people that fight for our country. And, you know, I have a lot of them in my district. And quite frankly, I think the president ought to fire the lady.
And you are doing something about it tonight, correct?
We did something last night, and if we can get the time, we'll be doing something about it tonight. And we'll be doing something about it every night until we get something
But do you
done
have support,
about it.
Congressman, do you have any support from some of your colleagues on this?
Quite a few colleagues are supporting me. I had four of them down there last night talking on the floor of the House. And it's embarrassing. If you read this report, if you believe anything different from the administration, basically she's saying to law enforcement across the country, keep an eye on these people. Keep an eye on these people who believe in the right to keep and bear arms. Keep an eye on these people who are against the abortion process. Keep an eye on just about anybody that disagrees with the budget or with the stimulus package or all these other things, even that complain about jobs going offshore. So it's everybody.
All right, Congressman Carter, we do appreciate your time. I know you're busy. Thanks for joining us on Your World.
You bet. Thank you.